Hi guys, welcome to Wednesday. It's right around 1. I'm Dawn. I'm the food director here at Real Simple, and this is Real Simple Cooking School. That's what we're calling it now. We're so thrilled. Hello internet. I think we've got a lot going on. We've got Instagram, we've got YouTube. I think we've got Periscopers. Hello guys, it's been a while. And we have the lovely Facebook audience. Before we get into it today, let's quickly review the rules. Stay chill in the chat. If you don't have anything nice to say, you're now dismissed. This is a constructive teaching kitchen, and I aim to keep it that way. If you don't have anything nice to say, so long, get back to work. We like to have a good time here, do some learning. We're gonna cover the basics. So today we're gonna talk about two things. One, some basic knife skills, slicing, dicing, chopping, finely chopping, mincing, and we're gonna talk about onions. Because what better way to practice the chopping than with a bunch of things that will make you cry, which I hadn't even considered when I chose these things. So if I start crying, it's very obvious why. But before we do that, I want to quickly address some questions that came up from last week's cooking school. For those of you that remember, we did a 3-ingredient chicken dinner. Chicken thighs, Brussels sprouts, and potatoes were one, and then we did chicken thighs, mushrooms, and onions in another. I wrote about it. Guys, I'm going to try really hard to get some companion pieces up with these lives so you can reference back to those and answer some questions. But Brooke just, I think, dropped a link to that article in the comments. You can check it out for more info. But a few of the questions that came up. One, could you make the same dish with chicken breasts, boneless, skinless? Yes, you can. Now, I do talk about why I like chicken thighs so much. Mostly it's really hard to overcook them. And I know, like, at the end of the day when things are crazy, you kind of need to walk away for a few minutes, and if you don't get back there as soon as the timer goes off, that's okay. But yes, you can use chicken breasts. Just to review the method, we brown the chicken first. You'll do the same thing with the breasts. Take them out, add your vegetables in, and then you put it in the oven to finish. Now, the only thing with breasts, pick quick cooking vegetables because it's not going to be in the oven very long. Okay. 1 second. So some examples of those are like green beans and onions. They'll retain some of their crunch, but they'll cook really fast. I would say, like, avoid anything super starchy, like potatoes, like Brussels sprouts. However, you could shred those Brussels sprouts in your food processor with the shredding attachment and use those. Hearty greens are a really good option if you're doing that with chicken breasts, like some kale, collard greens. Those will just wilt and get a little crispy on top. So those are good options with chicken breasts. 2, can I make it if I'm a vegetarian? Grace Elkis, yes you can. So just use eggs. They're a great vegetarian protein. We're going to be using some today. You're going to do it the same way. You'll skip the browning at first, get your vegetables going with a little more fat because you're not going to get the fat from the chicken thighs. Put it in the oven while they're roasting. You fry up some eggs, pull it out, eggs on top, you're good to go. And then for Sarah Yang, can I do it if I don't have a cast iron pan? Yes, absolutely. The only thing is you need an oven-safe skillet. I don't really like to put nonstick in the oven, just like historically it was not good. I know they've made like great advancements and you can put lots of nonsticks in the oven at certain temperatures. I like a stainless steel skillet. All-Clad makes a great one. Brooke, maybe you can drop a link. They're more expensive, but they're gonna last you forever. So it's an investment, but it's absolutely worth it. And cast iron, like I talked to Sarah about this week, they're inexpensive, they come pre-seasoned, and you will have it forever. So go ahead and get one. You'll use it every day. I mean, I'm using it again today. I do use other pans, but yes, you can use another skillet, but I do recommend you just go out and get a Lodge cast iron skillet. Lodge, call me. Okay, sound good? So any questions off the bat? We're chopping, we're gonna talk onions, and then we're gonna make a frittata. Because it's a great weeknight meal. It's a great way to use up extra stuff in the fridge if you gotta move some product. It's also a nice way to use a bunch of chopped onions if you're not making French onion soup. So to quickly go over, we've got a yellow onion, sometimes referred to as a Spanish onion. I have these arranged from sort of most pungent to least pungent. So yellow onion, sometimes referred to as a Spanish onion. This is like your all-purpose onion. Use it in soup, use it in stock, use it to make caramelized onions. If you're gonna have one onion in your house, get a bag of these guys. They're very inexpensive, and they will serve you well in a variety of different recipes. White onion, a little bit milder, and I believe that has something to do with both the water content and the sulfur content. This is not a science episode. I just want you guys to get the general idea of when and how to use these guys. White onions you'll often see in like Mexican dishes on top of like, you know, tacos, pozole, stuff like that. Pozole is not Mexican, but we'll cover it. White onion, good raw. Yellow onion, you can obviously eat all of these raw, but it's a little, it kicks back. White onion, a little bit milder, and I would use it as a garnish, that kind of thing. Red onion, I love it, also because it's beautiful to look at. Even when it's cooked, you get some more color. A little bit milder than the white onion, I think. Now, a tip for both of these, and really any of these, but especially if you want to use a red or a white onion raw, soak it in some ice water for like 10 or 15 minutes. If you're going to use it at the end of a dish, do it first, slice it, chop it, whatever, put it in some ice water and walk away, and it'll be one, really crunchy and a little bit more mild, okay? Sweet onion, which again is more about that sulfur content than it is like actually sweet. I think most of you, if we did a blind taste test, you could probably tell the difference, but I think most of you are not going to be super aware of the difference. Am I hearing feedback? I can hear myself inside the camera. Okay, shallots, guys. These are another thing that are going to change your home cooking for the better. Use them in salad dressings, slice them into rings and fry them. They're delicious on top of like noodles, soups like that. What's going on back there? Everything's fine. Okay, leeks. I trimmed the tops. You can find them pretty tall. This is the part you're most interested in, slicing, dicing, chopping, whatever, great in soups. The tops you can eat, but they're pretty fibrous, so like requires a lot of chewing. I would just cut these off, save them for stock that you will make at home one day. Scallions, you're familiar with. They're great raw, they're great cooked. The greens are very pretty garnish. They're tender, they're easy to work with. These are a vegetable I like to just keep in the fridge all of the time because you can use them in a lot of stuff. Chives, you know, an herb, but also in the onion family. These are great for one of those high notes, Sam, that we talked about last week. Fresh herbs, lemon, acid, stuff like that you want to add at the end. Chives are great, also very pretty. And garlic, also part of the allium family, like all of these guys. We're going to talk about mincing in a bit, and I'll show you how to do it with garlic. Okay, got it? Overview, any questions so far? Silence from the room says, let's proceed. Okay, first things first when it comes to chopping, you guys have heard me talk about this before, but it's all about your knife. Now, this knife, Kelsey from Food and Wine was so very gracious to let me borrow it because I knew it was going to be sharp. And one of the tricks with cutting onions to prevent the tears is to use a really sharp knife. So we got that from Kelsey, thank you very much. Now, it's so beautiful actually, look at this handle. Very beautiful. Okay, but the main thing with a knife, especially your all-purpose chef's knife, is you want it to be comfortable for you. What's my favorite knife might not be the most comfortable for you. So I encourage you to try out several. If you like go to Williams-Sonoma or go to Sur La Table, a store that has like a lot of knives, ask to hold them. The main thing is you want it to feel comfortable in your hands. I like that very inexpensive Victorinox knife. We were talking about it, Mark and I were earlier. It's lightweight. I have kind of weak wrists, so I like a lighter knife. But as long as you keep it sharp, it's fine, whatever's most comfortable for you. So first I'm going to show you like the right way to prep an onion, which they teach you in culinary school, but which I think is like a little fussy for weeknights. So this is a paring knife, also something you should have in your arsenal. Again, Victorinox makes, very inexpensive ones. You can get like a pack of 5, and they work great. They're really lightweight. So you sort of choke up on the blade here. At an angle, you go in just at the root. See that? It's sort of similar to hulling a strawberry, okay? And then I just roll it around. Now, the reason you're like, Dawn, that's so dumb, why do you do it? Because there's very, very little waste. That's why. Now, home cooks, up to you. If you are like passionate about root to tip vegetable cookery, do it. If you don't mind like losing a little and you got other stuff to do, just take off the bottom like that. No big deal. We'll have other onions to chop. We'll review in a sec. So I like to take off the root. Then I like to have it. Then I like to peel off the skin. Sometimes you get that outer layer of onion too. It's kind of papery. I like to do this with my fingers. Again, like chefy business, you could use your paring knife to get that going. I am a little more confident just with the old French whisk. Okay, we got one side, we got the other side. Now, there are, of course, lots of technical designations for these different knife cuts. Slicing, dicing, fine dice, brunoise, stuff like that. We are not going to worry about that. We're talking about getting it done, okay? So mostly I'm going to focus on what we call for in our recipes. And having worked at lots of different brands, I can tell you that this is generally what we mean, okay? So sliced. I always like to slice pole to pole, right? That means root to tip. To be honest, I'm not sure what the difference is. Yes, you could slice it this way. I think you get a much prettier presentation if you go pole to pole. Somebody yell if you know the difference and why. But can you guys see okay over the onions? Okay, I say 1 yellow onion sliced. This is what I mean. I'm not thinking too much about how thick it is or whatever, right? If I want you to slice it more thin, so this is like 1/2 inch to 1/4 inch. If a recipe says sliced, they generally don't mean, they're going to tell you one, if they want a certain thickness. Sliced just means like, you know what, this is probably going to cook for a long time. It'll get soft. Don't worry too much about it, okay? So that is, I'd say, sliced. Now, thinly sliced generally implies as thin as you can get it. Now, there is one way to get better at slicing, dicing, and chopping, and that's practice. I'm sorry, that's it. There are a few things you can do, like learning to hold your knife comfortably. Some people hold it just with a handle. That's fine. I like to choke up on it a little bit, put my pointer finger on the blade and my thumb there for more support. I have seen very wonderful cooks hold it very differently, so don't fuss about that too much. But when I say thinly sliced, it generally means as thin as you can do it. If you're nervous, you can leave the tip of your knife on the board and go up and down like this. But as you get more confident, I think you'll find that if you lift the tip up and come up and down, it's more efficient and it's easier. I think that this part of the knife tends to stay sharpest longest, so you make this part connect with the thing that you're cutting, okay? Now, you notice I had the flat side of this onion down. When I get here, when it gets like a little bit wobbly, I want to turn it so that wider flat bottom is down. And then I can come back and slice this way. And then just be careful on that last one, okay? Thinly sliced, sliced, okay? Any questions so far? Is anyone making the mad face? I know who you are, Barb. Don't get too mad. It's not the point. The point is just to get comfortable doing this, and I want to sort of translate what we mean, okay? Let's talk about a chopped onion. We'll use the white one. I'm just going to take off that root, take off the tip, oop, slippery skin. Just be careful, especially if you have a very sharp knife. That's the other thing that's going to make a huge difference in your chopping is get your knife sharp and keep it sharp. If you're cooking a lot, I would say learn to sharpen it yourself. Otherwise, get it professionally sharpened every 6 months. Rebecca has a question in the audience.
Okay, so Mark wants to know if you could show us how to not cut an onion.
How to not cut an onion? Oh, there are so many ways.
What's the most common mistake that maybe you see?
Well, here's the thing, Mark. How not to chop an onion? I would say it depends on the recipe. Most of the time, you just don't want to chop it in a way that doesn't jive with the recipe you're cooking. So I would say if I said chopped, Like someone might just do this. I would say this is like cut into 1.5-inch pieces. Like this isn't really chopped to me, okay? But guess what? We're gonna do like a long onion saute. We can use it. If you're making soup where you really wanted to see the onion pieces, by all means do that. But that's a little rough. This is more like stock onion. Let me show you first how to do this, how to chop this half. And this is sort of what I mean when I say chopped. And now this also works for finely chopped as well. Okay, we've got our onion. I haven't really addressed the claw yet. All that means is you want to get your fingertips on top to protect these little guys, right? I've done it. I'm sure lots of you guys have done it. You're like chopping, someone calls your name, snip, and like the tip of your finger goes in onions. We want to avoid that. So staying in the claw means that the blade of your knife is going to miss those tips because your knuckles are protecting you. You see? Does this make sense? So your knuckles are perpendicular to the board, and that's going to protect you. It's especially important when you're slicing. Ba, 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 ba. If you ever see like guys that work in military kitchens, ooh, they can slice onions fast. Okay, but to chop it, now I will use the heel of my hand and get my fingers out of the way because it's a little bit easier for me. But again, with more practice, you can do all of this like this. But we've all got our weaknesses. Okay, so to chop, flat side of the onion down, my knife is parallel to the board, and I'm gonna make some parallel cuts. I am not going all the way through, okay? I'm leaving this part intact, and you just come on up, and this depends on how finely you want your onion chopped. Again, if I say chopped, I think like 1/2-inch pieces is pretty safe. And you just wanna go and make parallel cuts all the way up. If you wanted to do finely chopped, all you have to do is just get your layers closer together. Make sense? Makes sense, okay? So we've got our, you can see them. They're like little, like Audrey too, you know, from Little Shop of Horrors. Okay, so I'm gonna turn this back because this is the way I'm comfortable. And I'm gonna bring my knife, same thing, parallel to the edge of my board and come back across those cuts, okay? So we're sort of turning this into a bloomin' onion of sorts. Okay, so about the same distance. Now, we are set up for success, okay? Now, same, like you were gonna slice, straight on down. And then you should have relatively the same size pieces. Now, depending on how far you went, you might have this like awkward piece at the end. If it's getting cooked, don't worry about it. Just come on, well, this part will cook up. Come on back and chop through it. Again, you're not getting judged on this at home, and I know I'm getting judged right now, but you guys get the idea. But then you have this like very sort of uniform onion business ready to go. Important for making sure the stuff is cooking at the same time. But you can see, in the end, we're gonna cook this all together. There will be some very soft onion pieces. There will be some that have a little more texture and crunch. That's okay. So, point being, this is a great way to practice your chopping, okay? All right, I'm gonna do, let's review slicing with the red because it's pretty. Root comes off, pull to pull, halved. I'm not even using my trash ball, it's right there. Peel off that skin. Now, some recipes even, you can cook onions whole. This is a great way to do it. Sear it, cut side down in a cast iron, turn it over, throw it in the oven. Delish. Butter, breadcrumbs, you're welcome. And then I want to cover some Leek Prep and some fine chopping. Okay, but then we gotta cook. Oh my gosh, we gotta cook. Okay, to review, slicing thinly. Remember, I like to bring my knife up and all the way down. Leaving the tip, it's actually easier if you're dealing with a smaller thing. Like you'll see when we get to the scallions, it's a little bit easier if you leave the tip of your blade down. But for onions and stuff, I like to come up and do like this. Principles are the same if you're slicing a potato, sweet potato, carrot, cucumber, whatever. Okay, little bit of red onion for color. Okay, now let's talk about leek prep. Leek, also onion family, great for stocks. Leek's vinaigrette is like a very classic recipe where the leeks are sort of cooked until soft and then they get like a nice shalloty Dijon vinaigrette over top. So here's the thing. Leeks grow in sand, you see? Mark, can you see? Am I too close? So see, there's like sandy business, which gets in between the layers. Ew. So you got to clean it out, right? First of all, I'm going to cut off the dark green parts. Yes, you can use those, but that's not this episode. And I would generally just use those for making stock. But to clean these guys, you trim off the tops, trim off the bottoms, and have them lengthwise. That's a term you'll see in recipes also, a preparation term. It should sort of go without saying, but like let's just review it anyway. This is lengthwise, right? Versus width. So when I say have lengthwise, I mean this. And then it exposes those inner layers, and you can already see, like, see how sandy that is in there? And we're just gonna wash this the way we would wash salad greens. So Mark's gonna meet me over by the sink. Come on over. Trusty salad spinner, fill it up with cold water. And I like to kind of rinse it when it goes in there and separate the layers. Now, if you wanted like beautiful rings or something, you just kind of have to peel back and do this sort of thing. We're gonna just slice these up and it won't matter too much if they come apart. So I'm gonna do that a little more aggressively. Also, some leeks will be way sandier than others. And, you know, it's just because it comes from the earth, you know? So just give those a good zhuzh. And remember, like washing greens, we wanna swish, 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 walk away. All the grit will fall to the bottom, and we're just gonna pull it out with a spinner and spin it dry, okay? So while those do that, let's talk shallots. Shallots, awesome for pickling. I would say pickle some shallots tonight. Also works with red onion, but just like a little vinegar, good pinch of sugar, good pinch of salt, a little bit of water. You could heat it or you don't have to. Just put it in a jar, shake, 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 stick it in the fridge. Very delicious in salads, good on sandwiches, you know, noodle bowls, that kind of stuff. So shallots, I think, and this is just a preference. One, I love to see them sliced into rings. So, so pretty, either whether they're pickled or fried, which is such a delicious addition to especially like really fresh, crunchy stuff. Like I love it in cucumber salads. So I like to slice it into rings. It's a little tricky because it's round. But if you're nervous, just you can take a little smidgen off the side and it'll help it stand up with a little more stability, okay? And then to slice, you just do this. Same thing. Take your time. I am doing a little bit of back and forth because I'm being careful. Mandolin is another thing that you can use. If you're passionate about very thin slices, get a mandolin. It'll make your life easy. So at this point, to fry these, you'd combine them with a little bit of vegetable oil just to cover and put it over medium heat. When these are golden, they're done. Take them out, and then you have this beautiful shallot oil left over for dressings, for drizzling, whatever. Okay, let's talk mincing really quick while I have this. Now, we don't use the word mince. That is a style choice, okay? It means the same thing as finely chopped in my book. Mince, I think, also implies, though, like as fine as you can get it, generally used for things like herbs, garlic, shallot, and used when you generally want that thing to disappear into the rest of the dish, okay? So mincing, I'm not gonna be too fussy about it, okay? So I've chopped this thing, I'm slicing. I'm gonna come back through it. Now, of course, you could treat this shallot the same way that you would treat a big onion. It's a little harder, especially if you have bigger hands to do the fine work, but you get yourself to like a rough chop, fine chop place, right? And then you just come back through and rock your knife through it. Gather it together, come back through, come back through. So see, I'm keeping the tip of my knife in one spot, and I'm just coming from like 3 o'clock to 6, 3 to 6. Now, and you just have to like keep gathering yourself together and going back through it. So finely chopped, minced. I mean, I would say this is finely chopped. Minced, I'll show you in a sec. It is probably not super necessary for you guys to chop super, super, super finely. Not in any of the recipes that we're gonna ask you to make in Real Simple, on realsimple.com. Because we try not to make it too fussy for you, okay? Garlic, let's talk about mincing really quick, and then we'll start cooking. Okay, you see how garlic, these are the bulbs. It grows in a head, and they come then in these nice, like, individually packed, individually wrapped nuggets, okay? So I'm gonna show you two things, the mincing and then the making garlic into a paste, which again, rarely we call for, oh my gosh, now the onions are starting to catch up with me. We rarely call for turning garlic into a paste, but I just want you guys to see what we mean. Okay, peeling it, if it's being chopped, go ahead and smash it, okay? All I did, I put the garlic clove unpeeled under my knife. Some people like really wind up and go for it, that scares me. I just like to get my heel, the heel of my hand on it, put my body weight into it, and you'll feel it give way, okay? So if you're chopping it or you're cooking it whole, I like to do it like this. Peel comes right off, and you're like halfway there to chopped. If you want them whole and pretty, you've got to kind of come at this with a small knife. Let me show you. Which is fine, it's just like a little more annoying. It takes a little bit longer. So you take your small knife. If you can, try and keep that peel attached when you go across the root. It just makes it a little bit easier to get in there and peel it back. This would be important if you were going to slice it. You guys have seen, what's it, Goodfellas, when he cuts it with a razor blade? Not necessary with a sharp knife, but I'll show you. Slicing garlic, you know, it does make it very pretty if you can see those slices after. Garlic is one of those things where you got to be careful when you add it to the pan. You want to make sure there's some other stuff in there or it'll burn. Once it burns, the entire dish is, frankly, ruined. I hate to say it, and you guys know I don't want to say it, but when it burns in there, it makes the whole thing taste nasty. You kind of need to start over. So just be careful. Once the garlic goes in, eyes on the ball, okay? See, I'm going back to use my knife. Help me with get that peel off. The sun is shining in here. So nice. Okay, see? Nice peeled garlic clove. Okay, now we're gonna turn that one into a paste. This one that's thinly sliced. I like to do it lengthwise, it doesn't matter. Same thing. You'll see I'm gonna keep the tip of my knife down because this guy is small, he's not too tall. And you just come on through. Now, same thing. Once this gets like a little unwieldy, see how I'm risking everything, putting my fingertips? It's okay, I've done this a lot, but also this is giving me actually more control right now. So just be careful, go slow, okay? You will get faster, but don't try and race to it. So see how I turned it? So broader, flat side down, and come back through to slice. And then you'll get these little slivers at the end. I'm okay with that, okay? I'm gonna add these to my thing here. Okay, turning this into a paste. I'm partially smashed. I'm gonna come through, chop it up a little. Guys, if you go home and you're like, I don't wanna smell like garlic, lemon juice. Cut a lemon and rub it on your fingers and it'll help. Also, Dawn dishwashing detergent, my favorite thing, will absolutely help cut some of that scent. Okay, so
That's a question?
Yes, Rebecca's asking a question.
So a couple of our users want to know, okay, so they're only using half of the onion for a recipe. How do you store onions?
It's a great idea, and I will say this. I vow to you, when it is ever in my control, I will not ask you to only use half an onion. There's nothing that makes me more crazy than a recipe that asks you for half an onion, because what if I forget about the onion in the back? I'm always doing it. So that said, plastic is porous, okay? So you can put it in plastic wrap, you can put it in like, you know, a Tupperware container or whatever, but you'll smell it in the oven. I mean, in the fridge. When you open the door, you'll smell it because plastic breathes. I would say you could wrap it in foil, like my mom likes to do. Even like a bowl with like a little plate on top is something that I've done. Something sort of airtight, but that's not made of plastic.
Never knew that.
Huh, she says.
What are your thoughts about a garlic press?
I love a garlic press. What do I think about a garlic press was the question. I love it, especially when it comes to recipes that ask you to mince something, I think a garlic press is a great shortcut. I know some of you, Tony, don't like it, but my feeling is, if that means you're gonna cook dinner with garlic, hooray, okay, get the garlic press. Look for one that has the little nubbins on the other side. You'll know what I mean when you pick it up. Brooke, maybe pick it up. I think, again, the OXO one has it. So once you press the garlic through, you flip it back, and the nubbins push any garlic that's stuck back through. Those are the ones I like. But I'm absolutely a fan of the garlic press. Okay, see, we're making paste. I got my garlic to like a pretty good chop place. I added some kosher salt, whatever coarse salt you have. Table salt's gonna be, it's just gonna make this too salty, so don't use that here. Okay, I'm gonna come back through and keep chopping a little bit. So the salt is doing two things. It's drawing out some of the liquid from the garlic, but it's also acting as an abrasive. Okay, so I'm to like a pretty finely chopped place. I would also call this minced. People on the internet can get upset if they don't agree. Okay, so to smash it to a paste, I take the side of my knife and I smash and pull. See? I'm smashing and pulling, smashing and pulling, smashing and pulling, smashing and pulling. Okay? Then I'm going to come back, chop, 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 chop. This is helping. Getting it back on the board. Chop, 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 chop. And then come back and smash, 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 smash. So like this is what you guys buy in the jar, right? But why? You can make it yourself. The stuff in the jar, one, they often have preservatives, which I don't really like. And two, I just think they smell kind of funky. I prefer you do this, okay? And I would just keep smashing, keep chopping, keep smashing, keep chopping.
How long does that last?
This, I would use this immediately.
You can't save it?
Like, why? Rebecca asked, like, can I save this? Yeah, I guess I would put it in like a tiny container, but I would just do this when you need it. Okay, we're gonna wait to put that in. Okay, let's do scallions really quick. You guys get the idea. They look like baby leeks. They are different. You can eat the whole thing raw, pretty mild. I'm just gonna trim the tops. These are also fun to play. Oh, my mic. I did it. Okay, you guys can hear me now? Mm-hmm. I'm just going to show you a couple different ways to slice them, especially for garnishing. One, it's funny how knife cuts like get trendy. For a while, I'll say 10 years ago when I started in like editorial food, the cat's eye was like very popular. So that's like this super hard bias. Goes on the top. I still think that looks very cool because you can see like the dark interior with the lighter exterior. That's one way to do it. And now another fun thing is when you get to the end here, if you cut these like this, so they're like the two individual pieces, and put them in water, they'll curl.
Can you show that again?
Sure.
That was so fascinating.
Okay. Here, let's do it with another one. Okay, Rebecca wants to see it again. Are you guys bored or are you doing okay?
No, they're doing great.
Okay, so this is kind of, let's say like mid-aughts scallion called like a cat's eye. So just extreme bias, right? So just regular slicing just on an angle. See what I mean? No big deal. So when you get to the top here, when you've got these like all green pieces, this is my favorite part one, just as an aside. Rhinoceros thing, so cute. But when you get here, come back, do these like long biasy things, and then you just have them. See how it's like a eye shape? And then you just come through and detach. You put these in cold water and they'll curl. It's cute. Okay, so there's some scallions. Also, so this, I think, these are making come back just straight across, finely sliced, or thinly sliced, okay? And that's it.
I have a question.
Natasha has a question.
A lot of recipes call for chopping just the whites and separating them from the greens.
Mm-hmm.
How far does the white go up?
I would say it's hard because sometimes we say like whites and green parts. Often that's because there's not enough room to say white and light green parts and dark green parts separated. That's the truth, especially on the printed page. We have to fit it all on there. So we do what we can to make room. So I would say when it says white and green parts separated, I'd go all the way to there. And I would cook all of the, usually that's what is happening. You're cooking the white and light green parts, and you're using the dark green parts as a garnish, which is just like a smart way to get like more bang for your buck out of one ingredient. That is all that generally means. Got it? Rebecca's mind is getting blown today. I love it.
Oh, yes.
So like this, I would just chop, or sorry, thinly slice, and I might reserve this for garnish. Okay? Especially good if like a recipe calls for scallions and chives, and you're like, that's annoying. Just use these in place of the chives, okay? Speaking of chives, again, these have been out, so you see they're kind of starting to wilt. This is why you keep this stuff in the fridge until you're ready to use it. But to perk it back up, plunge it in some ice water. Leave it in there for a couple minutes, spin it dry, and you'll have like perky, tall, hello ma'am chives, okay? Let's move my garlic aside. And then chives, same thing. I think for a while we were seeing like, you know, classically they come like very, very, very finely chopped, thinly sliced like this. You may recognize these from the top of your baked potato. So there's like very, very thinly sliced. I personally went through a phase where I was like, screw it, and just like doing bigger pieces like this, which I think is interesting. Those are mostly just aesthetic choices, okay? You guys want to cook something? Okay, sometimes I apologize. Oh, I just want to show you one more knife cut. Sorry. Onions aside, we're going to talk about oblique cuts or roll cuts. I want to get these on the stove first, though. So what am I going to do with all of this? I could make French onion soup. We're going to make a frittata. Why? A lot of you guys asked about eggs last week. Frittatas are a great way to use up whatever you've got in the fridge, or even what you don't have in the fridge. Just eggs, cheese, a little bit of dairy, and you're good to go. So, ooh, hot stuff. Okay, I've got my cast iron skillet. That one's 10 inch, 12 would work. Smaller than that, we need to cut back on the eggs. Dozen eggs. I'll show you how to one-hand crack in a second. That'll be exciting. But frittatas, I would generally say you want to cook anything that's going into them first. Otherwise, it's going to water it out. So like if you wanted to add mushrooms or tomatoes, especially something with high water content, cook, saute first. Mark, you can, yeah, stay there. That's good. I'm just adding a little bit of olive oil to the cast iron. When it gets hot, I'm going to add the onions. Remember, that thing's going to wait for me. Okay, Mark, let's do eggs first.
Don't forget your leeks.
My leeks! Natasha. Okay, we'll come back. Leeks have drained all their schmutz to the bottom of the water. See, they're looking pretty clean, pretty crisp. I can already tell they've like firmed up a little bit. Remember, you're going to water a plant with that water. You're going to spin these dry, just like you would salad greens. And then we hit the brakes. And remember, when we hit the brakes, the water splashes out to the side so it stays in the spinner. See all that? And not on your vegetables. Okay? So leeks coming back. They can be chopped, they can be sliced, doesn't really matter. Just in the interest of time, I'm going to set these aside and just do a couple. If you're chopping things like this, say you have them lengthwise, you can line them up and do things, you know, twice as fast. This, I would say, is maybe a little wide. So this is something, you know, phase 2. Once you get comfortable with the slicing, comfortable with your knife, you can start lining stuff up. But otherwise, I'm just going to slice. Leeks, you know, you can slice them razor thin, and they sort of like dissolve into a sauce. I kind of like to see them. That's also up to you. But see how leek and scallion have similar properties, like white and light green parts, and then the dark green part. Think about that. But the leek tops, like I said, I think you guys should just save for stock. I think that'll be best for most of you. Okay, so we're gonna take these leeks over to my bowl of onions. Now, if you were making something super fussy, yes, it would matter what order you added your onions. I would add the bigger, slower cooking pieces first and the smaller cooking pieces last if you wanted everything to be the same texture. I actually don't care in this case. I just want to make dinner. That heat was not quite high enough, so we're gonna give that another second. While it gets hot, let me show you how to roll cut. I'm just gonna move this here and here. Now, roll cut doesn't really apply to onions. Does apply to anything like long and cylindrical, like a carrot, like a parsnip, even like quartered lengthwise potatoes, okay? It matters when you want to see the shape of the thing. Could you just chop things when it calls for a roll cut? Yes. Most recipes will not ever ask you to roll cut something. We'll just say chopped or cut into 1-inch pieces, something like that. But it is something that we would use if we were food styling, and at the end you'd be like, how come mine doesn't look like that? We'd be like, well, we used a roll cut and we just told you to chop it. We do make decisions like that, but it shouldn't affect the recipe if we give you a specific size that we want the thing, okay? So peeling that, I think this is hot. All I'm gonna do is add the onions. I might not be able to fit all of these in this skillet. That's okay, we're gonna save it for a different use, but I want you guys to get the idea. I feel like that's enough for right now. We'll make French onion soup with this later. So then you just want to cook these down. We're going to use this in a frittata, so we want these to be pretty tender. Once the eggs go in, they're not going to cook very much. So you want to get them to a point that you like. I would say on the other side of tender, getting some color. Okay, so onions are in. I'm going to season them a little with some salt. That's going to help draw out some of that moisture. Pepper too. Remember, we season early and often. And inactive time, right? When I tell you in a recipe, cook, stirring occasionally, this is what I mean. I don't mean like stand here like this. Waste of your time, okay? Do something else. Come on back to it. Stir, stir, stir. Prep another ingredient, okay? So let me quickly show you this roll cut. And it's pretty, it like kind of speaks for itself. So I'm gonna just take off the top, I guess. And all you're going to do, you're going to slice it on the bias, think like 45 degrees from the parallel edge of your cutting board, okay? And then you're going to roll it either toward you or away from you. Away seems a little bit easier, it doesn't matter. Same angle, roll it back. Same angle, roll it forward. Same angle, roll it back. Same angle, forward, back, forward, back. You see? Pretty for soups, that kind of thing. We'll do it again. On an angle, roll it back, roll it forward. Roll it back, roll it forward. Roll it back, roll it forward. This is especially good when you get to like the big end, and then you don't go as far. When it's at the skinnier end of the carrot, you can line your knife up with that edge. When you get to the bigger end, you can just go right through it. It's not a big deal. Again, guys, I am not going to come and judge you on your knife skills. I just want you to get it done. And I want you to have fun. I want you to have fun. And I want you to think it's delicious. Okay, so we're sauteing onions. So you can already see they're sort of shrinking. Yeah, Mark, come over. They're talking to me. Some of their liquid is coming out. They're already sort of beginning to wilt. And we're just going to keep them going. I would say, like, this is a very nice way to use the onions that you've practiced on. We've got like the dark green leek parts, got some red onion. It's very, very pretty. Okay, cracking eggs with one hand for party tricks. Party tricks, okay? You don't feel any pressure to do this. I worked for a guy in San Francisco very briefly who insisted that I learn this. Otherwise, it wasn't a great fit for me, but I did learn this, and I'm glad that I did. Okay, I like to crack eggs on the surface of whatever. It can be your counter, it can be your cutting board, versus the side here. Crack it here, you risk shrapnel, okay? The shards can land in here, and I don't think the egg breaks as clean. So this is what it looks like after I break it on the table. See, it's kind of the spider web effect with the center, but you can see I've got a more intense fissure here. Now, squeezing with my middle finger and my thumb, see, even if I just pull down ever so slightly, thumb is keeping it stable, and middle finger pulls back. Ooh, snap. You want to see it again? Okay. So it's really my middle finger and my thumb that are doing most of the work. Pointer finger is just like holding steady. Okay, pop. See? We've got spider web effect, that bigger crack. Middle finger holds it down. Okay? Okay, I'm going to stir my onions. But see how I'm using my inactive time? It's so smart of me. That's what I want you guys to do. Now, when you first start cooking, it's a good idea to prep all of your ingredients before you start, so you're not freaked out and doing this. Once you start to learn the dance, this is what I want you to do. Be confident enough to walk away from the hot thing and do some of your other work, okay? Okay, so I'm gonna keep cracking these. Okay, now, frittata. What's the D? I made a special one before we started, so I can have a swap out. That got some great height on it. I always add a little dairy to my frittatas. You don't have to, but it will absolutely make a more tender frittata. Eggs are like fairly lean, so the dairy adds some extra fat and gives you a little bit more wiggle room on the time in the oven. See what I mean? So like if it was just eggs, I want to pull it out right away before it was set in the middle, and then it wouldn't be rubbery. Go too far and like eggs are like rubber balls, you know? So I like sour cream. You could use creme fraiche. You could use a little heavy cream. You could use milk. I'm doing not the best job with the last few eggs, but you get the idea. Like I see some egg shrapnel, but this is a good lesson. I will tell you, it is nearly impossible to get an eggshell out of a bunch of eggs with your fingers. That thing will have you chasing around the eggs for 20 minutes. Instead, use the eggshell, okay? So I see a piece right there. I'm going after it. Oh, can I get it? Can I get it? See how I got it? Got it! See? So don't just like work right over the trash with these. Hold on to the shells and they'll fish you out any bits that you missed. Okay, a little bit of salt. Stirring my onions. Now, here, Mark, maybe come back. I want you guys to see these are starting to get a little bit of color because the sugars in the onions naturally occurring are being drawn out. They're starting to caramelize, right? And that's why you get this brown. Now, if it gets a little sticky, if things are happening a little fast, don't panic. Just add a little water, okay? It's gonna loosen up any of those brown bits. This is ultimately how you make caramelized onions. You just keep doing this for like 30 minutes. Get some color, add some water. Get some color, add some water. We're not gonna go that far because we don't have that much time, but do you guys get the idea? And see how now they're all kind of taking on a little bit more color? That's the idea. That's Caramelizing Onions 101. Okay, I season these eggs with salt, giving a little bit of pepper. Remember, it's sort of key that you use salt now because we can't get any salt into the eggs later. Somebody also asked last week, can I leave salt out of a recipe if I can't have it? Yes, rarely does it affect like the chemistry of a recipe, but it will absolutely affect the flavor. But if it's a dietary restriction, don't not cook because you can't use it. But that's the deal. So this is just an 8-ounce container of sour cream. I would say this is kind of my limit. 8 ounces is about a cup. You could use a half a cup, just anything to kind of get you going. This is a dozen eggs for a 10-inch skillet, 10 and 12-inch skillet. Smaller than that, use the same number of eggs as inches wide. That's a good trick. Okay, 8-inch skillet, 8 eggs. This would be fine with 10 eggs too, because it's 10 inches. And then you just want to give this a whisk till it's nice and emulsified. Whisk, 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 whisk. Any questions while we're whisking? Go ahead.
A couple of our users are wondering what kind of knives you would suggest them buying if you have any suggestions.
Yes, those of you who were not here at the beginning of the program when I covered this, I'm just kidding. The main thing with knives is that they're comfortable for you. What's comfortable for me, like literally comfortable in my hand, might not be the same for you. I like Victorinox knives. They're very lightweight, and like I said, I have kind of weak wrists, so they're easier for me to work with. They also come in like a variety of different sizes. They make a great paring knife. My favorite is like an 8-inch chef's knife with like a thinner blade. It's about like 1.5 inches. But I encourage you to go to the store and try a few out. And even if they don't let you chop anything, just like hold it. It should feel good. You should feel confident. You should feel like the boss of the knife, not the other way around, okay? Now, just to mention really quick, before we add these eggs, I'm gonna add this garlic now. Had I added it too early, it probably would have burned because it's so finely chopped, paste-like, if you will. I add it now, I've got some extra liquid in the pan. The onions are gonna prevent it from burning. And we're just gonna give it a stir. Incorporate, incorporate. And then I'm just gonna turn this on low because I want it to wait for me. I could even take it off the heat. In fact, let's do it. I just turned that off completely. Why? Cast iron gets hot and stays hot. That's one of the reasons I really like it. So that heat, that residual heat is gonna keep doing its thing while I shred some cheese. Now, cheese, totally optional, but we had some, so I thought, why not? It's another way to season the eggs without like additional salt per se, but of course there's salt in the cheese. Up to you. This is white cheddar. You could use Parm, you could use Gruyere, you could use Pecorino. Even like American cheese, I would say anything like melts pretty well. Feta is good, even though it doesn't melt well. So I just like cheese in here. But it's optional. You don't have to use it. Everyone thinks that's funny. And shredded, I like, you know, some of the other cheeses, even ricotta, you could like dollop on. You could save half of this and put it on top. I'm just going to put it all in. Why? Because I'm kind of lazy. Okay. Whisk, 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 incorporate. And that is about it, okay? It was 12 eggs, 8 ounces of sour cream, and let's call it like 3 ounces of cheese, 3 to 4 ounces. This is not, you know, this is not super, super finicky, so don't worry too much about it, okay? I got my onions. Mark, come over. My egg mixture going in. And don't freak out. This doesn't need to be perfect, because you've got a second to like give this a stir. I like to go ahead and just sort of agitate everything so the fillings, your vegetables, whatever you've got in here, are sort of evenly distributed. A lot of recipes will have you like cook this on the stove top until it begins to set. I mean, yes, you can. Those aren't wrong. And the good news is there are lots of ways to make a frittata. I like to just stick it in the oven. Why? Because I don't have to worry about it. This is a 350-degree oven, 20 minutes ought to do it, okay? Now, if you're using a bigger skillet, it might be less time because it's thinner. You see what I mean? Smaller skillet, less eggs, a little bit of less time. But I'd say generally, 20 to 30 depending. Now, you guys, guess what I did? I got prepared. Now, this is the one I made earlier. Now, Rebecca, when she saw it come out, she was crazy impressed because it puffed up beautifully. But then it fell which is not a big deal. That will happen also. But see how it's like released itself from the cast iron? There you have it. So this was all the same stuff. We had 12 eggs, 8 ounces sour cream, all those onions that I just cooked down until they were pretty tender, some white cheddar cheese, salt and pepper. That's it. Guys, do you have any questions for me about eggs, about onions, about chopping, about slicing?
There are tons.
Tons of questions. Okay, drop them in the comments. I'll dig through them this afternoon. I will write all this up. But a lot of you that asked for a recipe last week, the point is I don't really want to give you one. What I want to give you is the confidence to just get in there and try it. None of these are like, you got to do it this way for this many minutes and da-da-da. That's not the way I cook. That's not the way I think most people cook. It's stressful. And I don't want to make any more stress in your life, okay? So, thanks for being here. Guys, shout out to me. Make this week. Take a picture, tag it on Instagram, RS Cooking School. I can't wait to see it. And just shout me out directly at Dawn K. Perry with any questions. And we'll see you next week with a very special guest. Have a great week. Eat some eggs.